when shrews are compared to Oliver Twist, then you know you've got a Victorian naturalist.
Hi everyone, today is Wednesday. On Monday evening, I started reading more about Wild Nature by Eliza Brightwen, and this is the last book that I have to start from my Victober TBR. This is a compilation of Eliza Brightwen's observations of the nature in her surroundings. It isn't really a natural history in that everything that she says about nature and animals is based on her own observations and personal encounters. But she is a self-taught naturalist, so in that alone made me interested in her in the first place, and that was how I found out about her. So I've read the preface where she talks about the success of the previous book, Wild Nature Won by Kindness, that I read and enjoyed. That was fun. It was interesting to hear that kind of interaction with the readers, and she was sort of surprised at the positive response that she got for her first book. And then I read the first two chapters, and they focus on birds like parrots and on shrews. Immediately I felt like I was in good hands with this book. The one thing though that I've thought about with this book and sort of remembering the previous one is that although I think the idea of compassion towards other animals that she believes so strongly and she spends so much time exploring in her books, that idea I think is very modern and very relatable and applicable in the modern time. But there's one aspect to this book and the previous one that I am not completely comfortable with, and that is the captivity of animals in order to study them. She doesn't seem to do this thoughtlessly. She seems to only capture animals for a short period of time and in very humane kind of ways. But there's a certain level of captivity in the books, probably in part because of the time, in that the Victorians of course did a lot of collecting of animals like butterflies, and also had less of an issue in the captivity of animals and in cages and things like that for the study of them in the science. As a modern reader, and in particular as a modern reader with strong feelings about animal ethics, that has been one thing that I've noticed and that I wanted to highlight since I have recommended the previous book and reading this one at the moment. I just wanted to mention that in case any of you are interested in picking her books up, just bear that in mind. Other than that, I think her approach to nature and her wish to share her enthusiasm for nature and everything that it has to offer is very refreshing. The book that I've been reading earlier today, and that I will probably spend the rest of the day reading, is this one. Can you recognize which one this is? It is Bede, and oh my god, the part where I'm at the moment is so dramatic, very, very intense. It is Friday the 25th of October, and yesterday evening I finally finished Bede by George Eliot. So Bede has been the knit and listen, read along and knit along. I am far from finished with my knit and listen project. So this is the project progress. So I'm about halfway through, I would say. It's I've started on the first sleeve, so I've made a little bit of progress on it, and it's just stockinette stitch, so it shouldn't take too long to do. But as you can tell, there's a lot still to be done. So I think I will continue to work on it and hopefully finish it by mid-November maybe. When I've finished it and when I've blocked it and everything, I will definitely show you no matter when that is. So Bede itself, I really enjoyed. I think a lot of people associate Bede associate George Eliot with quiet, slow writing, almost dull. I think at least that has been a bit of my impression about her. And I think when you start reading Adam Bede, that is what you get. It is a very slow building of an entire community and the main roles in the community and the people in this town that have the strongest effect on the town as a whole. Adam and Seth Bede, each other's polar contrasts. So we have Adam, who's a very strong, firm character. He's sort of the moral character. And then we have Seth, who is more of the open-minded, emotionally driven character. And with a similar pair, we have Dinah and Hetty. And they belong to a different family. Dinah is a preacher woman, and she is, again, a very moral character, very strong. Then we have Hetty, who is more flighty, more unrealistic. She's really pretty, but she doesn't seem to have a firm grounding on reality. So we have these two very strong contrasts in the two pairings of characters that we follow for the main part of the book. And quite quickly, I think you get a clear sense of who they each are. In the beginning of Adam Bede, you're introduced to a lot of characters. You quite quickly understand these 4 characters are the ones that matter most to the story. This book is quiet for a long period of time, and quiet in a way that I appreciated. I think is a portrait of a little town and all of the goings on there. It is set in the 18th century, so there's a little bit of historical context in the book that I enjoyed. There's a lot of discussions on religion and on family and on duty as well. But then further into the book, it becomes very dramatic and intense, and I was surprised with the turns that Eliot decided to take. I often find them very unexpected and very interesting and intense storylines that she decided to explore in this book. There's one character whose fate is very tragic, and I'm not going to spoil you, but it was the only thing that I didn't love about this book is that storyline, I think, could have been further explored. It's a bit uneven in the pacing of it, and I think that might throw some readers off. So I really enjoyed Adam Bede. I would love to know if you've listened along with us for Knit and Listen, if you enjoyed it.
Är du redo?
I was listening to Great Expectations as I was getting ready with the flat iron, and I am getting so pissed off at Pip. So I said previously that I liked the fact that he sort of he's getting ashamed of sort of his origins because of a girl that he likes, Estella, who belongs to Miss Havisham, and apparently they're not actually related. So because I don't know the story beforehand, I'm getting all of the information wrong because I get the information the way that Pip gets it, and his information is wrong. Now I'm getting to the point where he is actually he's moved to London, and he's living a pretty wealthy life, separated from Joe and the town where he grew up and all of the people in it. He's treating Joe so poorly, and it pisses me off. And because Joe comes to visit him, and he basically doesn't want Joe to be there in his new life, and he's ashamed of him, and he keeps complaining that he doesn't act a certain way and look a certain way. And Joe obviously figures it out what Pip is thinking and pretty much confronts him about it, and then he has a reason to go back to his hometown because he has been called by Miss Havisham and Estella. And then because he realizes that Joe is hurt, He thinks that I should probably go to Joe first and stay with him for a bit before I go to Miss Havisham. But then because of the way that he's thinking now, he doesn't go to him. He goes to a hotel or like an inn instead, and just avoids the fact that he could have taken this opportunity to make amends, but he doesn't. And I have a feeling that my first impression of Pip was fairly positive. I thought that this is a boy that has everything going against him, but he seems to be good at heart, and with all of these great successes, with great expectations on him and abilities to make something of his life, that he would sort of grow with that. But instead it's the opposite, and it's probably a point that Dickens wants to make, that you don't become a better person with wealth. It sort of has to be you sort of have to be a person with principles, no matter how much or little wealth you have. It does seem like it has a kind of retrospective attitude to it, the structure of it, which is good because that means that he eventually realizes what an ass he is. Hi everyone, today is Sunday and it is the 27th of October. So this is the last day of this Victober reading vlog for the 4th week. I've now made it past the halfway point with Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, and I saw a video by Katie from Books and Things talking about sort of where to start with 10 very popular Victorian novelists, and for Charles Dickens she recommended this book in particular as a place to start with Dickens, and I couldn't agree with her more. This is a first person narrative, and because of that it makes it very easy to get into immediately, because you are immediately thrown into one voice, and it's easier to get your grounding with this story in comparison to the few that I tried by Dickens before. The Pickwick Papers and A Tale of Two Cities are two that comes to mind immediately, and I had no success with those two. So I have been really enjoying Great Expectations. I like the way that the story unfolds. It does seem like Miss Havisham is trying to exact revenge through Estella and her actions towards Pip. I'm guessing that is where the story is going. It does seem like that is the clear direction, and I'm enjoying that aspect. I think the more I read of this book, the more I like Miss Havisham as a character. I find her very interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of her character up front. A lot of the time she seems like she's sort of in the shadows, or you don't really see her reasoning for doing things, or what she's thinking, what she's feeling. But there's one part in her interaction with Pip where her purpose is becoming quite clear. Listening to Great Expectations by Charles Dickens this evening. Charles Dickens is very ironic in this book, and I think again I associate Charles Dickens with very serious writing. I don't expect to find comedy in them, in his books, but the way that he characterizes Pip, I think I at least find very ironic. So there's the part where I'm at the moment is when Pip and Herbert is sort of going through their debts and writing everything down, and they're so sort of full of themselves at just writing everything down, and that is almost as good as actually paying off the debts. The irony of that whole scene reminds me of Winnie the Pooh, the humor in A.A. Milne's books. So that has been a bit of a surprise, but definitely a welcome one. This has been a Victober filled with at least two interesting discoveries for me, with George Eliot being a writer for me, because I have not read any George Eliot before. I tried reading Middlemarch a few years ago and had no success with it, so this year having read Adam Bede was a really interesting discovery for me. And finally getting to Dickens and actually enjoying his humor has been interesting. So in that sense, I think this Victober has been valuable to me, other than actually having read a lot of books. I think it will affect the way that I approach Victorian literature and other classics after this month is over. Hopefully I will actually be discovering more Victorian authors to read and to dive into these authors that I've been reading further in the future. I think because it is already Sunday evening, and I think that I will probably only just keep on going with Great Expectations today. I think this is going to be the last update that I do for this last weekly reading vlog for October. I think I will also do a reading wrap-up on the last day of the month, talking about the books that I've read for October and the 2 other books that I have at this point anyway finished outside of October reading, to just sort of sum it all up there. So that will be coming, and if I finish anything more if I finish any more of the books that I am ongoing, then I will obviously include that as well. Thank you very much for watching this 4th and final reading vlog, and thank you for engaging with me for all of the previous reading vlogs. I really appreciate it. I hope you've had a fantastic Victober this year, and that you've found maybe a few new favorites, and that you've enjoyed what you've been reading. Also, it's been really fun to host Knit and Listen. I hope everyone who joined in on that enjoyed the experience of that. So that is all that I'm going to say at this moment. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will talk to you soon.